So Isaac, thank you so much for joining us. It's kind of a special argument in my eyes for the goodness of social media because I really only found you because of your activity on LinkedIn, and
Yes.
I typically, despite being on it a lot for businesses and trying to spread marketing and stuff like that, don't love social media. But I look at everything that you've been doing on there and how many people you're connecting with, how many people you're seeing and meeting for the first time and sharing your story. It's pretty remarkable. And it's because of these platforms, that you're
Mm.
able to make these mass connections. How did you end up on that profile on that platform?
Well, it's quite a funny story because I've been on all social media for what seems like forever. And for years, people would say to me, "Oh, you need to join LinkedIn. You need to join LinkedIn." And I thought, "Oh, why do I need to join another platform, especially a professional Facebook?
Right.
Like that's why it was always cool to be a professional Facebook."
Right.
And I thought, "Oh, I don't really want to go on another social media." But it was after a while when people kept saying to me, "Yeah, you need to join." So um, I started. I wanted to start on there talking about my involvement in wheels and wheelchairs,
Mhm.
the roller skating and wheelchairs, and I was gonna I was gonna just share that content on there, but it kind of just led on to me sharing stories, and then people really liked reading them. And then I kind of just grew it there really, and I had to be connecting with people and getting so many opportunities. And now it's like my favorite social media platform out of all of them.
What does what is it about LinkedIn or that type of communication that's special to you?
Um, I I feel I've been able to connect with like-minded people,
Mhm.
um, especially within the disability community. I didn't know all these people have been doing like I didn't know about adaptive fashion before joining LinkedIn. I didn't know about people making a difference for when it comes to shopping for people with disabilities and things like that. Like all my life, I've kind of just lived life, but I didn't realize that people are here to make the difference. And it's kind of opened my eyes and um, my eyes to different disabilities and what people are doing to make it a more equal and fair world. And I've
Yeah.
got involved in so many different avenues, which definitely wouldn't have happened if just stayed on Instagram and Facebook.
Hey, it's fascinating. I'm just in my personal life, I don't have that much exposure to people with disabilities. And
Mm.
after finding you on LinkedIn and like reading through the articles that you wrote, you're a phenomenal writer and communicator. The videos that you put out, they have such like a healthy sprinkle of satire and comedy in them.
Yes.
Um, and then through this, obviously, the algorithms work in magnificent ways. And I've just been exposed to basically a whole new world
Mm.
of through the foundation that you're the president of Wheels and Wheelchairs, but then also just other people that will comment or share their stories or communicate with you, and then you kind of get going down this rabbit hole of other people's experience, and it's kind of eye opening,
Mm.
when you're on the outside of it. I can only imagine how powerful it can be to connect with other community members like that.
Yeah, because like I said, I had my eyes open to so many people doing so many different things.
Mhm.
Um, and even though I'm like a wheelchair user, I don't know about all disabilities. So it's kind of been a learning experience for me as well. Um, Getting to connect with people who are blind and people who do sign language and things like that. It's kind of been quite eye-opening. And even one thing I found with LinkedIn, compared that to the other social medias, it seems to be more positive and constructive. There's
Interesting.
no, yeah, I've not really had any hate or anything rude. I think I've only had it once, and I've been on there for over a year now. And yeah, I've only had it once. And if someone has something that they don't feel like they don't like my opinion on something, it's more constructive rather than you're wrong. I don't want to listen
Right.
to you, stuff like that. So
I wonder if that's like the professional or quote, quote professional aspect of
yeah.
it, that maybe if you're just like an internet troll type
Mm,
personality, you're going to find like a Twitter or an Instagram faster than going on and creating your professional profile and linking that to the businesses and things that you support, like maybe that kind of functions as some sort of a filter to
mm.
keep that out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they do it really. I've honestly, out of all the social medias, I never knew there was a place online like this.
So did you try like your hand at Twitter, at Instagram? Were you kind of drawn towards these social platforms because you have a technical background, right? Like you're an accomplished videographer and editor, you're familiar with
Yeah.
software and stuff like that. So did these kind of things interest you at a young age?
So I in 2012, for Christmas, I got a GoPro. Someone gave me a GoPro because I said, "Oh, I want to start vlogging,"
Yep.
and I was given that as like a surprise, and I started vlogging in 2013. So YouTube was like my main platform at first, where I could showcase my video editing skills.
Yep.
I did that for about 5, 6 years, and then I made a Facebook page where I would upload the videos there as well. And it got kind of some viewership on there too. And then eventually I joined Instagram, where I'd share the videos. And I thought I got quite more engagement actually compared to YouTube and um, Facebook. When I joined Instagram, I thought I was getting quite a lot of engagement. And I posted there quite regular. And then uh, I did have Twitter, but I didn't really share videos on there. Um, I just tweeted like everyone else does. And
I can't figure Twitter out for the life of me. I've been hacking at it for years, and I
yes,
feel like I just run into like endless speed bumps on that thing.
I think I feel the hack when it comes to Twitter is you have to be on the ball. Like you have to be on there 24/7, really.
Right. Totally. I
Yeah.
think it's like a war of attrition. Like I am not willing to commit, that level of my time to it, even though I know that like the
Mm,
success of it kind of lies on the other side there.
yeah. But I don't like Twitter. It's too toxic.
Yeah, it seems to be rife with just criticism and I mean it is so strange. Like the world we live in, the willingness with which people will engage into a really heated and nasty conversation with someone that they have, that they'll never meet in their lifetime ever,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that you would never ever say face to face. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that you would actually get face to face with someone and say any of the shit that you say
Yeah,
behind
exactly.
the keyboard. Like, why do you think that is?
Um, I think with most social media, you don't really have you're not held accountable because you could
Right.
make any profile and say whoever you are. And these social medias don't have like a accountability part where if you say something wrong, you're gonna get in trouble. But social media doesn't really do that because I think the only thing close to what they do is they block your account. But I mean, that's not holding you accountable, is it? You
Right.
know?
Especially if that has no bearing on your earning or something like that. Like it's not keeping the roof over your head, then you get banned for a day. You
Mm,
just turn your hatred somewhere else, right? Like you can find some other platform to be angry on. It's not the end of the world.
yeah, yeah, that's it. And it's just sad that people can just get away with it, really.
How do you think we fix that kind of thing? I've tried to reflect on this a lot, and I think it's quite a challenging problem to attack.
It's very difficult because I don't know because everyone is different and everyone has different opinions on things. It's very difficult. Like, yeah, that's fine, but I mean, yeah, the people being toxic is not great.
Right. And then I think about that and I'm like, okay, but toxicity, for
Yeah.
example, could be subjective. right? Like, let's say I have an opinion, and I'm like, you know what, Isaac, I don't really like your water bottle. You're like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, but it's great. I mean, it's portable. It's got a lid that
Yeah.
twists off. I can use it whenever I want. And I'm like, it's just, I'm a stainless steel guy. And you're like,
Yeah.
obviously this this is the foundation of where I'm going with this. But let's say you just push that way far in the other direction, and it gets to be much more heated, much more personal.
Mm.
At what point does someone's opinion go from being their opinion on X issue to being toxic towards another person or group of people? And I feel like that's the hard thing to solve for with everything on these social platforms, is at what point are you over the line and at what point are you at the line?
I think when you're going over the line is when you're attacking the person and their characteristics, when it goes
Mhm.
beyond the water bottle, for example.
Right.
Uh, like for example, like you could say, I don't like the water bottle because you got a disability or something like that, then it's going too far,
Right, like, the infliction of, I mean, I would characterize that, right, as, like, harm to some degree. It goes from an object to now we're causing actual
Hmm.
harm or mental trauma to somebody else on purpose,
Yeah.
and that type of intent is what really steps over the line.
Yeah, I think once you start getting personal and uh start bringing people's characteristics, that's when you've gone over the line, and that's when it's toxic. And that's why like Twitter is really bad, because like you said, it's a heated argument, and then you see some really horrible things which had nothing to do with the original argument. It's just crazy.
I
It's
know you. It's like a Reddit thread. You're like, yeah, what's the capital of Colorado? And you're like, oh, I know that. And then you click on it, and it's like, all of a sudden, you're in some really dark, twisted hole. And you're like, what? I thought we were talking about like, geography here.
yeah. Yeah.
And there's no once you're on a thread, there's no filter
Mm.
between one level and the next level. You're just into the next level, and it keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
When you think about kind of your life now, your ability to connect with all these people, I mean,
Mhm.
it's magnificent, right? And here's a perfect example, right? I'm in California in the United States, you're in the
Ye-
UK. This
yes.
is awesome. um,
Yeah.
I know that in the past you had struggled with, and you're an advocate for mental health, so you've had some struggles with it in the past.
Yeah.
What was that journey like, from struggling with mental health on a very personal level, and maybe you want to elaborate on a little bit of what that felt like or what you were going through, to now having this, it seems like an exponentially growing position and voice within this global community? Like, what a transformation. How amazing is that? What was that like for you?
So basically it was one of those things where I grew up with this disability, and the people around me were very supportive and always encouraged me to be the best version of myself. And this really helped. And when it came to overcoming obstacles with my disability, I found it to be second nature.
Mhm.
And it allowed me to do things like skydiving, skiing, tall ship sailing. The list can go on and on. Um, but the problem I had was I was known as Isaac's such an inspiration. I thought to be inspirational, I only had to show the good side, and I didn't really show how I was actually feeling.
Mhm.
So I would not really be honest with myself, and neither would I be honest with the audience. And I would just share the good parts. When it came to vlogs, I would always cut out the bad parts and just show the good side of life, really. And that's kind of like a vicious cycle where you're not being honest with yourself, and you're always putting up this front, because people would say, oh, Isaac, how are you doing today? And I would always say I'm okay, even
Right.
though I might not be feeling the greatest. And it was kind of a vicious cycle, and I kind of lived that for, I'd say, 23 years of my life. Um, and it was one of those things also, I wasn't very confident in talking about it because, I was this inspirational guy. I didn't want to be seen as vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I, yeah, it kept on going over and over. And then I got to a breaking point where I was like, yeah, I can't be living like this anymore. So I took a step back and I started to learn about the mind and mindset. And I, this is when I started learning about the law of attraction, law of vibration, how we think, feel, and speak is the reality that we create. And this kind of put things into a whole perception, and I understood uh, why I was so when I was feeling down, the world around me would also feel down. And it was like, oh, actually, it makes sense now. I understand kind of like life now. And ever since learning that and meditating and learning that, I've come to terms that being honest is good.
Yes.
And I, and people can relate to you being honest, you know? And that this is why I feel that I've really grown big on LinkedIn, because I'm sharing honest stories and people can relate to it.
Yeah, I feel like honesty is I mean, a staple in any stable
Mm,
health condition, right? Is to recognize, where you are, where you're at, where you want to go, kind of thing. And if
mm,
there's a facade that you're putting up to, appease other people, or maybe we even do it defensively for ourselves to
mm,
say, I'm gonna force myself to be this way so that I don't have to address what's really underneath. It creates a perpetual spiral
mm.
of which at some point you're going to have to face it,
Yeah,
whether it's
yeah.
privately or publicly or whatever. And I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. Like there is definitely some appreciation for other people that are willing to put forth how they really are and
Mm,
kind of let that veil down and say that, hey, it's not all peaches and cream 24/7 for Isaac,
yeah,
right? That I'm going
yeah.
through some tough stuff and I experience challenges on a daily basis. And here's some of them. And then
Mm,
other people, one, I think it creates better probability for connection because then someone else, maybe who's going through something similar, now you connect on a very personal level. Is, oh, I
yes.
understand exactly what that person is going through. That's just like me. And I thought I was alone in this. And
Yeah, yeah.
now when you, yeah, make contact or when you meet that person, whatever, it's a much more powerful connection. But it's easy to hide behind pretending to be a certain way, right?
Oh, very easy. Yes, yeah. Like I said, I'd done that for 23 years, and I never was honest with people. The only times that people knew that I was feeling down was I would, uh, I admit I was kind of someone who would write all of my emotions online
Nice.
sometimes. Yeah, and
Maybe too much.
yeah, a bit too much, and it was. I think that's also really bad because I would sort of play the victim, and I would make it sound worse than it actually was, and I, I I don't think I was doing it for people to feel sorry for me, but maybe I was doing it subconsciously.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I'll just write things like, which I look back now and it's kind of really cringy. Um, looking
Was
back at
it
it
was it
now,
like kind of like a woe is me type post, or
yeah,
what do you mean?
yeah, like so. For example, one thing I really struggled with was I thought to be happy in life, you need to be in a relationship,
Mhm.
and whenever I would have no, I would like a girl, for example, and she would just be nice to me as just a friend, but I interpreted it wrong
Mhm.
because she was just being nice, not like, oh, she's doing it because she likes me. And I kind of, when I found out that she had a boyfriend or something, I was like, oh, why is it always me? And she's doing this on purpose. And I'll just say it publicly. And it's like, you know, I'll play the victim in that way.
Yeah.
Um, but as mentioned before, it's another thing I learned that yeah, you could be happy once you have the right mindset. And it's something I'm not really focused on at the moment. I'm happy as I am, and just building foundations. And I like having these connections and getting to talk with people. So
Well, if it's any consolation, I've been there many times. But the classic, oh, I don't think she's just being nice to me dilemma
Yes.
has been experienced by many. So you're not alone there. It is
Yes, yeah, yeah.
it's interesting trying to figure that out when your emotions play tricks on you, you know?
Yeah, I and also nothing I find it very difficult to control my emotions.
Mhm.
Um, so I'd kind of be swinging here and there, feeling really happy at times and then feeling really down and sharing that online. Um, and you know, when I was writing this stuff, I know now it was like really bad for my mind to be writing that stuff.
Mhm.
Always being negative and well, I won't say I was always negative. Like I've had some really good experiences over life, but deep down, I just wasn't happy within myself.
What when you say that, like what does kind of walk me through that experience? So to the outer world, so we'll call that like close friends, family, maybe
Yeah.
extended social circle. You're this inspirational, motivating, kind of high spirited person. And then what are those internal feelings? What kind of things are going on the day to day in your head, in your body?
Um, it's it's kind of strange because I carried the Olympic torch. I won a TV. Sorry, I won an award which got me on television and things.
Mhm.
And on the outside, yeah, I was doing all these really cool things. And don't get me wrong, I did appreciate these things, but I don't think I appreciated them as much because internally I wanted to be in a relationship. I wanted to become big on YouTube, and that never worked. I wanted to get loads of views and likes, and you know, it's one of those things where I was doing really cool things, but yeah, internally I was just not really happy and not really um honest, and I was just negative really. But it's weird because I would show it sometimes and put it publicly, but then other times I just wouldn't say anything.
Yeah, it's interesting how we can tie positive affirmations to things like views and likes and traction.
Mm.
You know that they is that kind of where you're like was it that you weren't experiencing those things or that your hopes were met with failure across those different areas?
Sorry, say again, please.
So like these feelings of the negative feelings tied to, let's say, YouTube, for example, or
Yeah.
social media growth. Was it that your expectations weren't being met with what was actually happening in reality despite your efforts? Or was it that things just like weren't going your way?
It's yeah, like my personal goals weren't being met. So I always wanted to become big on YouTube,
Mhm.
and do vlogs, which I did for years. And I started off doing it because I enjoyed it and I loved editing and I loved sharing my experiences. But it got to a point where I was like, oh, I'm spending all these hours on these videos and I'm not getting more than 20 views and I'm not getting many likes and I'm not getting so many subscribers. Um, my personal goals were really the things which were keeping me down. But on top of that, I was doing so many great things. So it's kind of uh, weird, really. But yeah, on one hand, I was doing loads of uh I was given loads of opportunities that not I would say like not everyone gets to experience, and I was letting my personal goals make me become blind,
Mhm.
um to not really appreciate uh what I'd been given. um
Is there any concern inside the this stardom that you're experiencing within like the world of LinkedIn and kind of this traction, how freely and willingly excited people are to share and redistribute your stories and your clips and your writing and everything? Do you ever fear that there's too much emotion tied to that? Or do you feel like you've moved kind of beyond that because of this previous lesson?
so I feel I'm more because I changed my mindset, and which was a good time before I joined LinkedIn, I am more prepared. And when I came to the conclusions and understandings that viewers don't matter, and likes don't matter, like at the end of the day, as long as I was making good content, that's the main thing. And I feel once I forgot about the views and likes and putting emotion to it, that's when I started to see real growth. Because I was doing it because I felt passionate about doing it and sharing real stories. That's where I saw the growth. Because and then it was one of those things when I did go viral for the first time on LinkedIn. It felt strange because for years I always wanted to go viral.
And
Um,
what do you, when you say go viral, what quantifies, or like what kind of parameters does that fall in for you?
well, I mean, for me, going viral for my first time was getting like 1 million views.
Okay, so from like it's quick exponential. I mean, that's a
Yes.
lot. Yeah, a million views is huge, especially if you're, you know, you're getting YouTube videos with 20 views that you like hammer away for hours and hours and hours and edit. I've been there, right? I have plenty of videos like that with nothing, despite all
Mm.
the effort. So this is serious exposure for you.
Well, I mean, so that was in July last year,
Yeah,
and it was one of those things where I always wanted to go viral, but when it happened, it kind of felt like I've always wanted it, but then on the other hand, it was like I don't really care as much.
that's probably why
Um,
it happened.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And but it was very overwhelming. Gosh, that
Yeah.
was like a lot. And I had so many people wanted to connect with me, and
Mhm.
there was comments every um 2 minutes, and this lasted like a week, and it was very overwhelming. And when it happened, I was like, okay, I need to answer everybody. I need to
Right.
message anyone who messages me, and it was just a lot.
You
And
need to hire a publicist. That's what you need to do.
yeah, gosh. Well, I mean, so that happened, and then a couple of months later, I went viral again,
Yeah.
but I was more prepared for it. And I realized, look, it's impossible to answer everybody. You can't connect with everyone, and you can't answer every comment.
Right.
So that kind of prepared me for that. And then I don't know if you saw in February, I went viral, and this was like proper viral. And this is what really gained a lot of attention on LinkedIn. Um,
It must have been around, because I think I reached out to you in January or February. I think in January. So this
right,
actually
okay.
might have preceded this, but it was,
Mm,
that reach out was probably a result of being exposed to you via one of those kind of erupting, because it's
yes,
always through like a connection, you know. But
yes, yeah.
yeah, I mean, what's the experience been like since this third birth?
Oh gosh. So the third one, now that is like that really is a whole. So I thought going viral with 1 million views was something, but this one, guess how many views it got in 7 days?
I my fiance has taught me to actually guess when someone says that, so I'm going to actually guess here because she gets frustrated when I say just tell me.
Yeah.
All right, 7 days, 10 million.
So just a little less, so 7 million views.
Wow, a
And
million views a day.
yeah, pretty much 1 million views a day. I got over 1,000 connection requests and 18,000 followers
Wow. So
in
that
a
took
week.
you from, you're what, like around 7,000 then, right before that.
So I had about 5,000 followers, and then it got to 20,000, and then it jumped to like 25,000. Now I've got over 25,000 followers.
So for you and your, like for anyone listening, you can go and I mean see Isaac's extensive and legitimate career on here. Um, is, do you look at this and go like, okay, now I got to figure out, like, if apparently the growth thing's working for you, right? Like you have something
Yeah.
special, you know, you can deliver on it. It's repeatedly finding the right algorithm and loophole, like going the right way. The growth is compounding, so it's bigger each time. Is there a part of you that's like, damn, I need to figure out how to monetize this? Or is there anything in your head that's thinking about it like that?
Partly yes. Because LinkedIn's a lot different compared to all the socials. Like, I don't think you can monetize your content
Right.
on LinkedIn, but I mean, I've got like a lot of opportunities to work with people. So there is that to it. But someone made a good comment because I wrote about it and they said, look, you've got 7 million views and you're not getting anything from it. LinkedIn must be benefiting from that and you're not.
Well,
So
certainly.
yeah, so I mean, I did ask because in December I was reached out by someone in LinkedIn and they said to me, "Oh, would you like to become a LinkedIn creator?"
Mhm.
So I'm officially a LinkedIn creator,
Well, I would
and
imagine if it goes anywhere like YouTube, right? I mean, in the early days of YouTube, there wasn't any monetization. And so you had people with big followings
mm,
who were producing a ton of content and the content was getting a ton of exposure, but there wasn't that connection yet. And then when it got greenlit, I mean, a lot of the top, like Mr. Beast, for example, was
yep,
making videos forever before it got monetized. And then he had basically like a video bank ready
mm,
to go when it did. So who knows? Like maybe there's some kind of business opportunity for you there in the future as you continue to do this. But you know what's one thing that I really love about your page
yeah,
is that it's you, like you're writing one, you write well. So I can sit there, I can read it because you're a good writer, you're fluid, grammatically
mm,
correct, like all these kind of things it's enjoyable. And if anyone's not, like if your grammar's not there or if you have no flow or you can't communicate your ideas, then it's not really fun to read. So on one side, you're a talented writer.
mm.
You couple that with it's like beautiful blend of humor is the only way I can say it. Like you have a very good way of throwing satire or comedy on top of otherwise like serious things. Like or
mm.
you'll humor yourself, and like the video clip, right, where you're on TV and you're like reacting to this.
Oh
It's
yeah,
hilarious because you're cutting not only is the editing good, but like your delivery on the puns and the jokes is very like timely. So you're taking this really serious thing, like, oh my God, this is incredible. You're on TV, you have this really cool interview, with this professional lady, and then you're like cutting it against you being like, oh, that's a great smile. So uh,
yeah,
but it's great because then on your page, it feels very real
mm,
from someone who's not involved in your personal life. I can look at that and I feel like I'm watching a real person telling real stories about real stuff versus
mm.
watching a person telling stories they're supposed to tell about things they're getting paid to talk about. It's just that organic aspect of it, that genuine nature. It makes sense to me why you keep hitting these marks like over and over.
And another thing now you mentioned about that video, um, also a lot of people commented saying, you're honest, like you didn't know that person, and it's like, yeah, I didn't know that person. I know, I think people were shocked, saying, "Oh, how could you not know that?" But I don't. So
Yeah, I know there's one point you look down and you're like, this is me looking down because they gave me questions to answer. And I was laughing because I'm like, no one would ever be willing to admit that they had been given questions, right? Everyone always wants to act like they're the one creating the thing, or I thought, this is my interview, whatever. But you look over and you're clearly reading. You're trying to like read and be respectful at the same time.
yes,
And you
yeah,
cut it against you being like, yeah, I was reading questions that they gave me.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
this is so great. So it's like you bring this comedy aspect
Mm,
that I don't know, it feels very refreshing.
mm.
I would imagine to find comedy and humor in life is hard enough just in general, right? I don't think people do that enough. I try to make fun of myself every day, all day
Mm.
long, because I think it keeps us humble to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, it's also one of those things where if I was really serious all the time, like I feel if I listen to like a speaker or read something.
Hmm.
If it's too serious, like it just shuts people off, and
Yeah.
you're not interested in reading on or finding more about that person because it's boring. I try and have that humor in because it's yeah, I don't want it to be boring, basically.
Yeah. And I guess there's a blend of like multiple points, but I mean, being sad is a part of being human. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you're gonna have days where you're just down. No matter who you are, no matter how happy you are, you don't have to be suffering from depression to be upset. It's an emotion. Naturally,
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
feel this way. Some days I wake up and I love my life, right? Like I really am. I'm grateful that I get
yeah.
to live my life. But there's days where I get up and I'll be taking the dog out or something, and I'm just like, ugh. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
malaise comes over. It's like a fog rolled in, and you don't really know why.
Yeah,
And I think in my younger self, everything wants to like spearhead that and change it and feel better instantly. And then as I got older, I was like, you know what? It's okay to walk around and be like bummed out every once in a while and just sit with that. Just be
yeah.
there, upset, and it'll go because it's all impermanent anyway.
Because I'll mention this here. It's like being always positive is as toxic as being negative.
Yes.
Because you can have positive toxicity as well. And you have to have that balance because being positive all the time, it's just not healthy
And it's
at all.
not real, I don't
Yeah,
think.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like I want to, I don't know. I think in life, we're kind
Yeah.
of always trying to find our common ground, especially when you meet someone new, right? You don't know them.
Mm.
You're figuring each other out. What sweatshirt are they wearing? What kind of, what's their
Yeah.
phone background? I mean, there's just things that you're always trying to pick up what's going on with the other person so you can establish this common ground of, okay, we like the same team, or, you know,
Mm.
we go to the same restaurant, whatever that is. And when you're perpetually happy 24/7, it just kind of feels like something's off. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, dude, it's okay to, you can shed a tear once in a while. It's totally human. And so I think I agree with you. I think that it almost creates distance from your environment, which is the irony in it, because I think people that spend their time that happy all the time, 24/7, never show any other emotion. They're doing it to try to bring people into their circle, when
Mm.
in reality, you're actually pushing people away.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it.
Yeah, it's I think it took me a long time to get to that, though, to be honest. It
Mm.
wasn't an overnight realization, but to get to a place in my life where I do feel okay with sadness or negativity, as long as I can recognize it from a little bit of a withdrawn perspective. What
Mm.
do you do when you feel, we'll say, like negative thoughts welling up inside of you?
Well, so yeah, it's human for me to feel negative and upset about things, but like so once I kind of learn about why I'm feeling in a certain way, I find it easier now to overcome uh negative negative feelings. So for example, before I used to have a really bad situation and I would have it in my mind for months and sometimes years, just playing in my head, and I would always feel very negative about that one situation. And once I then learned about it, it's like now I can be negative for about less than 24 hours now, or even a couple of hours. And it's yeah, it's something I've learned over time. And uh, one way of dealing with it is also like meditating,
Mhm.
breathing exercises. So yeah, I find it easier now.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like it's quite strange also, as in I've felt really negative. I'll give you an example. I was feeling really negative, and I went to see a friend who I'd not seen for ages because I was like, oh, I'm really negative. I think my computer wasn't working. Meetings weren't. working well. I was like, I need to go out. And my friend was like in close by. So I went to see her, and I met another friend of hers. And when I got there, they were both of them were really negative, like like proper negative. And I was like, wow, this is like my feelings is what the reality is creating.
Yep.
And I once I understood that, I was like, wow, it's really crazy how life is, like how your life is mirrored in others as well.
Hmm.
Um, and the same when you're positive. I meet positive people. Like once I changed my mindset, the amount of people that I had not spoken before talking about the same stuff and on the same wavelength was like, wow. I was like, oh gosh, yeah, that's really weird. Once you understand it.
Well, sometimes life can be a mirror, you know,
Yeah.
it can, you get those moments of clarity and you're like, oh, whoa, that's how I'm being, or
Mm, mm,
that's how I'm feeling. I kind of, I, so meditation is a really big part of my life.
right.
It's really cool to hear you say that you do that and breath work, but it's like anything else. It's practice, right? Like it
Yes.
takes, meditation is not woo woo spiritual. Oh my God, I'm, uplifted overnight. And now I see like multiple dimensions. It's like a exercise. It's practice. You're teaching your brain to
Mm,
recognize the now, this moment right now when I'm talking to you right now, and be there in it.
mm,
And
mm,
because in that moment, everything's fine in reality, right? And it's the things that we layer on top of that and our expectations and our perceptions or thinking about things in the past that aren't actually going on right now that we tend to cling to. And then we have emotional reactions to that. And it's really refreshing when you do get your day punctuated by those moments of clarity of,
mm.
like you're saying with your friends, you get there and you're like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know I was like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it makes you want to change it.
Yeah. It was so weird. But now I understand it. I understand why most situations happen.
Why did you get into meditation? And
Um,
actually, I guess a better question is, because I'm curious, what is your meditation practice?
so I listen to guided meditations from YouTube.
Yep.
Um, I always feel it's better for me to have it guided and someone talking what you need to do.
Mhm.
I feel I can follow along better. But yeah, it's like I said, it's all about like learning from the mind, and meditation was one of those things which came up for me to um put into practice, and definitely helps with the mindset.
Sometimes I think about like, it really all is just the mind, right? Like everything in
Yeah.
your experience, that is what is going on. The body, when you really sit with it, the body does really seem to be this a shell in some senses, but it's also a shell that can dissipate when you really sit and just think about it. How important has mindfulness been to your day-to-day, your mental health at this point in your life?
Oh, very important. And it's one of those things where I I learned all the stuff. I did it for about a year, and I thought, I'm at a good place now. I don't need to practice it anymore. Um, I understand everything.
Downfall.
Well, I mean, and then like a month later, I felt really negative and down, and I thought,
Yeah.
okay, it's one of those things where it's a journey and not an end destination. You always have to keep practicing it to
It's so
really keep up with it, because yeah, once I stopped, like that's when I fell down again. And in my head I was like, I never thought I'd ever get here again. I've come too far. How could it happen again? And I was like, well, it's because I stopped practicing it. So
it's so funny to hear you say that, because I do the same thing. I use a guided an app, but it's a different one that I started 10 years ago. When I
okay.
started originally, I would use the Headspace app, and
Oh yes,
then
yeah.
I would do that, and I did it for like one. My mom had tried to get me to meditate since I was like a kid, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not like saging my room and hitting gongs, and I'm good, mom. Like, love you, but I'm good, you know? And
Yeah,
she was like,
yeah.
no, it's good for you. And this was, way before mindfulness became like frontal in the fitness world.
Mm,
And so I just never did it. And then I finally was like going through a rough spot. And I was like, I need to do something for me personally where I'm like trying
mm,
to resolve this. Came up upon meditation. And I think it was the gamification of the app probably that got me consistent in the first place. It's like, okay, cool. You do this, it's complete. Then you know what's next. And then you have accumulated completion. And it just started to kind of feel good. But I think my expectation was that I was going to get to this place of like blissful awareness, in the
mm.
short term. And then I stopped. And it was only when I stopped that I realized how much my mind had actually changed by being consistent with it in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Because I would notice, these negative thoughts would rush in, or I would notice that I would get really hung up on something that
Mm,
typically wouldn't bother me. So, like, a little thing would happen in my day and it would just destroy my day. And it would
yeah.
remind me that before I started meditating, that's how I used to be a lot of the time. And so I
Mm,
was like, wow, okay, whatever this is, it seems to work when I'm consistent with it. So I gotta get back on it and start doing it. Uh, and then you realize how minor and small the improvements are, but how
mm.
meaningful they are too.
Yeah. I mean, once you keep at it, that's when you really see the benefits from it. And it is a long term thing, not to see the short term benefits. Because, yeah, that's because honestly, when I stopped doing it and I felt down for like a week, I thought, how could this happen? Honestly, I
Yeah.
thought, how am I back here again? Because I honestly, in my mind, thought to myself, I'll never get to this point ever again in my life. Um,
You know what you should do? This would be this would be so rad. If you
right.
created a guided meditation on your LinkedIn, I feel like you have the voice for it. Like you could do I don't know how the problem is, I don't know how one would learn. They're so good at it, on the apps, like they're so
Yeah, they're
great
really good.
at
Yeah.
what I don't know how you learn how to guide the meditation other than maybe like replicating what they're doing. But how cool would that be if you did like a live meditation event? I would be there 100%. Dude, I would join 100%. Like that would be so cool.
Well, I mean, why not?
Right. That should be your new slogan, right? I mean, at this point, like the world, everything will be possible. Uh,
Mm.
when you do your breath work stuff, is that guided also, or is that just
Yeah, that's guided. I've done like different breath work over time, like the Wim Hof one.
yep.
Uh, that was quite intense. I'd always feel out of breath when I finished that one.
Have you ever done like the cold plunge,
Uh, no.
like the ice bath?
Oh no, I haven't. No,
Oh,
no.
you got to try it.
Right. Okay.
It's so horrible and so great at the same time. I don't
Mm,
know if there's anything. I was actually just talking with a friend about this over the weekend because they have a pool that was, I don't know Celsius, so I'm going to be worthless here, but the pool was
yeah.
at like 46 degrees and the hot tub was at like 100. So you could go from the hot tub to the cold pool and back and forth. And we were sitting there in the hot tub talking about how mental it actually is. Like the
Mm,
water is cold, but it's really not that bad. When you get in and
yeah.
you're actually in it, it's not that bad. But
Mm,
what
mm,
you perceive in your head, what you expect it's going to be like,
yeah.
it takes so much to overcome that. But you got to try it.
Perception.
That would Here's another great video doing like the ice bath. Man,
Well, yeah, could do.
it just like, if I could be courageous enough, I would do it every morning.
Right.
Because it, like, I don't know, it's like having 10 cups of coffee. It wakes you up so fast because it's such a shock to the system.
Mm.
But if you learn how to breathe, you can control a lot of that. Have you read Breath
No.
by Dr. James Nestor?
I've heard the name, but no, I've not read that.
It's in the vein of like Wim Hof. So it's a book about
Right.
like nasal breathing. He wrote a book called Deep, which is really cool. It's about free divers. And through
Okay.
following these free divers around, he realized all these breath exercises that they do. And then
Yeah.
from that, decided to write a book only about breathing. So it's all about breathing pathways, nasal breathing, stuff like this. If breath work is part of your life, you should 100% check it out. You would love it.
Yeah, yeah. I always find any new material good, really, because there's so much to learn. Life's just.
Oh my
I always,
God.
say- I always say to people, life's only interesting once we think about it.
What are some of your insights that come to mind when you think about life? When you do exactly that, what surprises you?
Um, Sorry, say the question again, please.
So like when you sit there and think about life in the
Yeah,
context that you just said, is there anything that surprises you or scares you or excites you?
I think because most people live day to day. Wake up in the morning, go to the office, work for the boss, come home, go back to bed, and then back over again. But the amount of things that you could see if you had your eyes open and looking around, like, oh, I never realized that woman was wearing that pink coat, or I've never seen that red car before. I feel like there's a lot to see and a lot to witness that many people don't realize.
Mhm.
Um, and as mentioned before, how our how we are creating the reality around us, um, and getting to talk with like-minded people. Like, people are kind of scared to talk to others sometimes. Um, I think in that aspect, like, when you think about it and just see things that you wouldn't really see, is when you do really do see um, life for what it is.
Yeah. Just like how it actually is.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot of distractions. I think, it's very easy to go through your day to day and spend most of your time in thought, thinking about things
Mm.
in the past or expecting things in the future and missing what it is that's going on around you.
Yeah, most people forget the present.
Mhm.
Um, what's happening now? That's the most important part of your life. What's happening now?
Which is, I always think it's interesting because it's our ability to think about the future and reference the past that allows our species to continue to move forward at the rate that it is. Like we can expect storms that are coming by watching weather patterns, or we can look back to
Mm.
history and know that there's certain things that we shouldn't try to repeat. So there's some advantages to spending time outside of the present, yet at the same time in our personal life,
Mm.
so much of the not I don't even like calling it happiness because I feel like that's a little uplifted, but contentness or that stoic nature of just level-headed being is all happening
Mhm.
right here.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah, yeah,
always there with you, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're flying, running, whatever, it's always there. You can always be in that exact moment. And in that exact moment, everything's totally fine.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Because it's another thing where I learned. Because stuff I already know, what I knew, but in January I was watching a video, and basically what the guy was saying is, you know, in life, situations are just situations. It's us who determines if it's positive or negative.
Mhm.
Um, so there's no such thing as a positive or negative situation. It's what we decide what to label it as.
Right.
Because there's many times where something negative happens and we take it a bit too far and see it as really negative, but in reality it's just a situation,
Mhm.
that we have full control over how we feel about it. And I think this is something that I wish was taught in schools, because it's like, oh, when someone says something to you, it's like negative, or um I can't think of any examples, but I mean, we are taught that these are negative situations and these are positive situations, when in reality, we should be able to determine that ourselves.
Mhm. When you
Um,
when you were a child or when you were growing up, what were you taught about disability?
I when growing up, I c- because of the friends and family and the schools that I went to, I was kind of just treated like everybody else.
Mhm.
So I didn't really learn disability. I kind of just got on, and I had everything in place for me to be able to do school and be able to hang out with my friends. And I had here we have learning support assistants where they would help me during class and help me when it's time to eat dinner in the canteen and things like that. Um, so I think it was after school is when I started really learning about disability. Um, because another thing is like all my life, technically, I've been a disability advocate.
Mhm.
When it comes to um, accessibility and not being able to do certain things, I've kind of just done that naturally. But yeah, learning it has kind of just been after school, really. Because in school, we only had either people in walkers or other wheelchair users. And I guess I did learn like the difference between manual wheelchair users and powered wheelchair users. But when it came to like people who are deaf and blind, I never really had the chance to learn about it until after.
What did it feel like learning about that later in life?
Well, as mentioned before, it's just an eye opener, really,
Yeah.
because I think it's one of those things where people think, oh, you have a disability, you must know everything about all disabilities, and it's like, no, I wish I knew about everything, but I don't, and I'm learning as much as everyone else is.
Is there anything you wish you understood earlier that you now understand?
Um, well, I think the main thing is mindset and how how we can have control over our realities. Because, like I said, disability overcoming obstacles was second nature, but mindset was a personal journey, um, which I wish we were taught that in school. And I did have people who were supportive about it, but I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you're negative, you don't want to hear positive. You
Yeah.
don't want to. You don't want to hear what people have to say. Like,
Misery loves
uh,
company.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, why are you telling me all this positive nonsense? I don't want to hear this.
Well, that goes
Uh,
back to the honesty thing that you said too.
mm,
Like if you're going through a hardship and everyone else is telling you that it's fine, it's not. It's not
mm,
fine. You're going through
yeah.
you're going through something. Let's call a spade a spade. Deal with it. But
Yeah.
you can't deal with something that you can't address. And so if everything is being masked or talked about as if it's not what it is, that creates a challenge for us
Mm.
to deal with it, right?
It's also funny. Um when I kind of like understood it, I got in contact with a friend I've not spoken to in ages, and she just gone for a breakup,
Mhm.
and I was able to help her with like how to deal with mindset and stuff, but it was very difficult because I was very stubborn and she was very stubborn. I was like, oh, I can relate to this because I was very stubborn when people were telling me stuff. And she didn't want to listen like I didn't want to listen. And it's very interesting, really, how most of these negative feelings and thoughts are kind of repeated. It might be like different situations, but I think when it comes to negativity and depression or stuff, it's kind of the same pattern.
Yeah, it's like a merry-go-round.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
But I mean, the good news there is if you are someone who is dealing with those kind of thoughts in the merry-go-round type situation, then once you can fix that one hitch, you're
Mm,
free from it,
yeah, go break the cycle.
right? But it's hard, man. I mean, that's the task, right? That
Yes.
that is hard. I've always felt like for me, just like humor, just for the sake of humor, is a really important part of that. Like the
mm,
power of just laughter, whether
mm.
it's forced, like you make yourself, make yourself
Yeah,
smile and eventually you're smiling.
yeah,
Or if it's surrounding yourself with people that just keep things fun and lighthearted
mm.
and honest. So like honesty and humor together are a pretty good recipe for feeling great.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I always feel after a good belly laugh, you feel so much better.
Yeah, like it's available to everyone.
Mm.
Uh, you just have to be willing to let it in, and then once it does, I mean, yeah, like you said, you have a big long belly laugh, and then good luck being like pissed off for the next 5 minutes. It's not going to
Yeah,
happen. You've shifted your state. Uh,
yeah, yeah. The amount of times where laughter may that be a really dark sense of humor or laughing about a situation really does help.
do you ever go to like stand up comedy or watch
I'm not
comedy?
so I'm not a huge fan of stand up actually.
Why is that?
Um I don't know. It's weird because I don't like the idea of people taking the mick of other people. Um, I think that's kind of strange, but on the other hand, I do have like a dark sense of humor when it comes to disability
You do?
and yeah, I mean, talking with others, especially others in like wheelchairs and stuff, do stuff we come out with, it's like, gosh, we could not say this publicly, but
That's
but
good. You know what though? That's beautiful. That's good. I mean,
mm,
I think comedy has to be safe in some regards.
yeah,
Within friend circles and stuff like that. Like you should have the freedom to joke with each other, knowing
mm,
and I think trust is a big part of this, right? Like in those situations, you trust the people that you're with, and that makes it enjoyable for everyone to participate in. It's
yeah,
when maybe someone isn't familiar or doesn't trust or doesn't know the people involved, that's when it becomes problematic. But like I'm tempted to ask you, where does your twisted sense of humor go?
I think that's for another podcast.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. You're like, hey, the LinkedIn thing's going really well here. Don't you're like, I can't not now. Let me get another couple million views and then we'll do a whole episode on just that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things where I wouldn't have just kind of joking with just anyone because
Right.
everyone would interpret it differently. Someone might get offended. And if I don't know the person, I wouldn't be saying jokes like that. I don't want to be upsetting anybody.
Right. When
Mm.
I saw recently on your LinkedIn, you did a fashion show or you attended one or you
I
participate in the design of it.
It was a bit of everything actually. Yeah, so London Fashion Week, I went to support my friend, who actually is a LinkedIn connection. She started her own adaptive fashion brand, where she has like different clothes for people with different disabilities, which again
So
is one of
cool.
those things. Yeah, and it's one of those things where my mum would create clothes which would fit me. I never knew it was a thing for brands to, or independent brands to make it accessible for people. This was kind of an eye opener for me. And yeah, I went to support her on one of the shows, and then the next day, because it was 3 shows in a row, I got to be a model in one of the shows.
Nice. How is that?
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Was it
Second time
all
modeling.
was it all models were in automatic wheelchairs or hand wheelchairs?
So it was mixed. It was a mixture. So it was all types of disabilities.
That's so awesome. See, this is why I love these types of conversations because once again, like here's a stark example of my ignorance.
Mm,
I just never considered that clothing would have to be different
yeah.
if you're in a wheelchair or not. Like never until a second ago, I never even thought about this. But now that you mention that, it makes complete sense, right? Because you have to adjust the apparel to match the body type of whatever the disability is, right?
Well, I mean, for me, I didn't know that there was buttons which were magnetic, so people with cerebral palsy can find it easier to button up. There was one which I wore which had zips on the shoulders, so you could put it on easier. And even that something for me, I didn't know was a thing. You know, I've
Right.
when it comes to changing, I have people who support me,
Mhm.
but um, and like I said, my mum would create clothes to fit me, but I didn't know these were things to make things more adaptable. So yeah, it opened my eyes to a lot of different ways of when it comes to clothes.
How was it being a model? So
Um,
like, all your dreams came true.
yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, so this was the second time I modeled for this woman,
Yep.
Victoria. And so the first time I'd done it, it was kind of like a last minute thing. And she said, "Oh, would you like to become a model?" I said, "Yeah, sure. It's not on my bucket list, but I'll do it." And
For
it
you.
was one of those things. It was one of those things where I, because there was not like no training or anything. You just had to go out there and do it. So
Yeah,
I
so
kind
look
of,
pretty. Done.
yeah, basically, yeah. But I mean, it's like how do you really do it? But yeah, so I just did that, and that was like, it was in a small pop up shop with 40 people, so it was like sold out. Um, so that was quite. I think it's more nerve wracking than like speaking because you have to
Mhm.
perform. Really, you're
Right.
performing.
Well, and you're showcasing you're
Yeah.
trying to show someone's work, right? Whereas like if you're going up and speaking, you got it up in your head, you're going to deliver it just you, your voice. The
Mm,
responsibility is to you. Whereas you don't want to let your friend down either,
yeah,
showcasing their
exactly.
product. So I'm sure that that brings some added, levels of stress or something to it, anxiety around the event.
Yeah, it definitely has that behind the scenes feeling that you got to get it right. But when I was asked to do it for London Fashion Week, this was like probably about 200 people, so
Mhm.
much bigger crowd, and
Wow.
there was cameras at each corner, so you had to stop, let them take pictures, then go round to the next set. It's like yeah, it's a lot to remember and do, but
Yep.
we did have a practice run there, which was good.
And do
Um,
you see yourself wanting to get more involved with that type of stuff? I mean, I'd imagine that at this point, like more opportunities than you can say yes to will start to come down your pipeline. And you're
mm,
going to have to choose what
yes,
types of things at this point, maybe you're saying yes to everything, but at some point with the trajectory that you're on, like you're going to have to start deciding what types of things you want to spend your energy on and what types of things you say thank you, but I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. What do you feel like you're like, what directions are you pulled with?
it's a very difficult question because so since leaving school, I've kind of had a more open mind to doing different things. I didn't really want to be going down one path.
Mhm.
So I do have the tendency to say yes to a lot of things, but I am learning the hard way that yeah, I got to pace myself. I can't really say
Yeah.
yes to everything because it's impossible. And I did a lot of climate change work. I did
Mhm.
Black Lives Matter and disability, and all things which are things that I feel everyone should be part of. But in reality, it's just not. Um, you can't put your energy in properly.
Right.
So I'm kind of made the decision to solely do disability,
Mhm.
anything disability related, because it's one of those things where I feel just the thing that I've grown up being the most thing that I've been fighting against and making it more better for everybody since the beginning.
Mhm.
So I've kind of had that concentration on disability. But on top of that, I'm want to keep doing video editing. I want to create more videos just for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's one of those things where I also want to get a team. around me. So I'm
Yeah.
able to carry on doing what I'm doing to the best of my ability. Because at the moment I'm doing everything solo. So like all the emails, all the video edits, attending these events, it's all solo.
Right. But
And
you
it's
know
a
what?
lot.
That's the hustle though. That's like the everyone, any person who's like made it or anyone that we look up to,
Mm.
you look back and there's this point in their career where they were like, sleeping out of their car. They were
Yeah.
putting forth all the money to do stuff. They were borrowing money to get production done, to produce one project, to get it to someone who didn't like it. It's like, I think, you'll look back in your career and this is like the most exciting point because
Yes.
you're growing at a rate that's like you've never experienced. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you have a team around you and you're on a production schedule. And it's like you lose the nuance of that freedom where you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak. And it's kind of weird. Like we want that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you only get to be in this part once in the creation
Yeah.
phase. And like maybe yours is you look at all the years that you've been doing YouTube and all the years that you've been making videos and all that stuff. And like when you look back, it'll all just look like one chunk of effort that
Mm.
worked with a
Yeah.
lot of failures inside of it. But like
Of course.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it spat out this like amazing growth potential. It's so cool.
Mm. Um. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're right. Actually, I think it will be something that I will miss, and it's one of those things where I don't know how easy it's going to be to let people take control of my emails or help me with the filming and stuff like that because
Probably
I,
impossible.
yeah, yeah, because I'm used to doing it myself, you see.
Right.
But the amount of time that I will gain from it, I think that's something that I'm gonna really appreciate, to have more time to rest and more time to do the things that I love, and be able to. And actually, I think it'll be one of those things where I'll be able to do more.
Yeah, I guess you don't really know until you get that time. It's funny you say that because I'm very much in the same boat, like with the podcast. So I
Mm,
like I do the outreach, I do the scheduling, I do the recording, I do the editing, I do the reel creation, the LinkedIn post, all that
yeah,
kind of stuff, just like you do. So
yeah,
I think about that and I'm like, man, some days if I were an audio visual guy,
mm,
cool, that's one thing, but I'm not, right? Like I'm a trainer by trade. And so I go and I do this and it'll take me 6 hours, to put everything together.
yeah,
I love every second of it, but I think about that. I'm like, wow, if as the podcast grows and it reaches more people, it'll be so cool when I get that time back to do
yes,
other things that will help grow this and fulfill it. But right now, my energy is spread across all those areas. But yeah, you
mm,
get someone who's like, "Hey, Isaac, you know what? I'll edit these videos," and you're like,
mm.
"But then what am I gonna? I edit the videos." you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And they're like, "No, no, no, you're on the talk show. We're doing the videos. You do the talk show." You're like, "Oh,
Mm.
okay. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. No, I'm on the talk show." It's like
Yeah.
you'll start to see how much time you get back and then
Mm.
you take all the beautiful energy that you have that you put into all this stuff and you just redirect it. But we don't
Yes.
know what that's like yet because we don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and especially when going viral and things, it's like there's that on top of all the work that I have to do. So yeah, it's a lot, and I think I am looking forward to the day that it does happen. But letting these things go after doing them so long is going to be difficult.
How do you feel about like when something goes viral, that's crazy. It's like a huge uptick, right? In like viewership and
Mm.
exposure. And then undoubtedly, whatever the next thing you do is usually is back down on planet Earth. And then
Mm.
it's like a little bit until the next one goes. Like, how do you handle those ebbs and flows of reach? Because it can be frustrating, right? If like something gets to people and you're like, wait, why did that
Yeah,
go?
yeah.
I worked so hard on this and no one wants to talk about it at all. So how do you handle those mentally?
Well, it's one of those things where I don't really worry about views. The only time I did worry about views, on my LinkedIn journey was in December. I saw really low viewership, and not much engagement. And I thought, I don't care about views, but if my content's not reaching the people that who are following me, then there's a problem there.
Right.
So I was a bit concerned from that aspect. But then I realized it because it was the Christmas period, loads of people did come offline.
Right.
So I did see less viewership, but I've been posting daily of stories of things I get up to. So I kind of don't let it bother me mentally, really. If one goes big, that's cool. If one doesn't, then that's cool too.
I think it's the consistency that matters the most there. Is that like you're
Yeah,
one, that the stuff that you're doing is meaningful, which it is, right? Is that
yeah,
you want to
yeah.
make sure that what you do put out there is stuff from your heart, things you care about that are genuine, but that also
Mm,
have, a positive impact for the people that receive them. And then if
yes.
you just do that a lot,
Mm,
eventually it works in your favor. But yeah, if you're tied to the individual spike or fall, it can be very debilitating to like experience hyper growth and then nothing, and then hyper growth and then nothing.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas
So
you're just
I've gone viral 3 times, and once July, November, and February. So there is like the gaps in between.
so when you look at your life and you think like, okay, 10 years from now,
Right.
what has Isaac accomplished and what is he doing for the world of disability?
World domination.
Perfect. And second to that, just make sure, just put me in the cabinet. I need to
Yeah.
be in that cabinet.
um 10 years, that's a big question. Um so for the past 3 years, people have like New Year's resolutions, and I want to achieve this year, but I've kind of stopped having goals now, and I kind of want to just have a positive outlook on life and just go with the flow, really, because adaptive fashion wasn't in my thought process.
Right.
Um, Doing the wheels and wheelchairs wasn't something I ever thought I'd be doing and become the president of. So I think it's one of those things where I want to just keep my eyes open, and my opportunities and the doors open to new things, so that I'm able to experience new things and meet like-minded people doing great things. And I want to just keep on learning as well. I think it's really good to just keep on learning. So I don't know, really. 10 years from now, I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing now, really, and just keep being the best version of myself, and inspiring others to do the same.
Well, then I'm gonna enlist you real quick to help me because I'm an extremely goal oriented person. Like everything in
Right.
my life is very structured. It's like, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. And then I work back from that. This is what I got to do, XYZ. I'm like,
Yeah.
consistency is king all day long, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's heard
Yeah.
that story. But I've been feeling lately pulled in the direction that you just said, where I'm like, you know
Mm,
what? For the first time in my life, I'm 33. Just chill
mm.
out, dude. Stop. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just take all the shit off the plate for yourself. And I feel super conflicted about it
Mm.
because, and this is where maybe you can help me. I
Okay.
feel like if I take my foot off the gas for a
Yeah.
second, that
Yeah.
I'm going to lose pace with where I could go. Like I
Mhm.
will, if I'm on a road of potential trajectory and like life accomplishment, that I'll take a detour on that road and I'll just like pull over on the side and it'll start passing me by. And I
I
feel like that's
think
insane, but I don't know how to move on from it.
I think it's one of those things where with everything that I do, I'm focused. That's one thing I haven't lost. Like if I want to do something well, I'm focused on it. It may not be a goal, but for example, like the wheels and wheelchairs, I would love to see it done worldwide one day to get more people involved in it. But I don't have a structured way of doing it, but I'm focused on making it happen.
I like
And
that.
yeah, I think just having focus and saying, you know, I want this podcast to reach a million more people. I mean, that could be like the end goal, but how to get there, I think, because I think sometimes when you structure it and it goes wrong, it's like, oh, what do I do now?
100%.
Um, so I think,
Welcome to my life.
yeah. So I think just having that focus on, I'm gonna get a million views, sorry, viewerships, um, and that's gonna be my focus. How you're gonna get there could be down any route, really.
Yeah,
Um,
it does speak to what you said earlier about it's kind of like mindset around it, right? You're
yeah,
inviting that type of energy and that type of trajectory into your life by,
yeah.
yeah, maybe not like confining what you're doing to specific parameters. Man, it's hard for me to depart from that, but
Mm.
I like that, and it's cool because you see what you're doing, and when you tell your story as you have on here, like it seems like the biggest strides were made in the moments with the least effort.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's true.
So yeah, to close out here, I'd love to hear a little bit about Wheels and Wheelchairs and just kind of what you're doing there. It seems so cool, like your obsession with rollerblading, and then the videos of everyone who's participating. I would assume that's in London, right?
Yeah, that's London. Yeah.
Um,
So,
I read a post that you had put up about kind of like it was interesting because you tied I didn't expect to read about rollerblading and equality in the same post, but
oh yes,
you
oh
brought it
yeah.
together in a very cool way, and that coupled with the video, it paints this really cool picture of this community uh, that's coming together to really are eliminating the disability by choosing a medium that doesn't play into it, like rollerblading for the rollerblader or being in the wheelchair for the person in the wheelchair. It's all the same activity, it's the same experience, because you're traveling at the same pace, you're traveling across the same surfaces, you're able to
Mm.
see the city or the river or the vendors or whatever stuff surrounding you all together in real time. And I actually had never considered that before I saw this video, of how much of a unifying experience that actually was. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what it is you guys are doing, and then you alluded to it, but some of your, you know, 5-star goals or ideas for Wheels on Wheelchair, since we're not talking about goals anymore, actually.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
never say the G word again, don't worry.
yeah. It's interesting that you did bring up that video because, for one, I really liked that video. The
Mhm.
guy who was filming it did a really good shot of that, and he sent it to me. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where when I joined, everyone is kind of on the same level playing field, where we all have wheels underneath us. If the surfaces are good, we all can't go on there. We all, as you said, go at the same pace with each other. And the first time I joined, the amount of people who just treated me like everyone else, like I've never seen a community like that before, where everyone was just so welcoming, and it was like, oh, Isaac, how's it going? And when I first started, I didn't know anyone, but again, like those people would speak to me, and um, the past 2 years is where I've really put my foot uh, through the door, and the amount of people who now come up to me and talk to me, it's been so nice, and I'm glad that I've been able to make that statement within the community, because Wheels and Wheelchairs is one no Wheels and Wheelchairs takes part in the other activities with the other skaters. So we have our own group, but then
Gotcha.
the ones that you see on Sundays and stuff is like everyone doing it on a Sunday, and we just participate in that.
It's really cool to see that. It's just
Yeah, it's
like,
great fun.
there's not that many things that I'm exposed to where it's just from the top to bottom, it's just a really good thing. It's just a good thing. It's people just being good to each other
Yeah, and having
across the
fun
board. Yeah,
and
and
having
having a
fun.
good
That's
time doing it.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. And as you said about the G word, I would
People
love
who
to.
tune in to the very end are going to be like, "Oh my god, what happened? What
Yeah.
happened here?"
Yeah. Yeah, we're saying some really
We are talking about goals.
yeah. I would love to see it done worldwide because it was Wheels and Wheelchair started in 2012 after a French group came for their 10th anniversary for the Paralympic Games.
Mhm.
And once they had arrived, skaters here were like, "Oh, we need to start something here." So it started in 2012, and it's one of those things where it's like, how come I didn't know about this sooner?
Right.
And the amount of people who have disabilities who would love this as much as I do, and actually, you know, even the skaters really enjoy pushing the wheelchair users. So it's kind of like a benefit from both angles.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd just love to see it done worldwide, get more people inspired to start their own groups. And yeah, I'd
Well, it's
just love
pretty
to see
cool
it.
because it's replicatable. I mean, if you have a
Yes.
metropolitan area, I would imagine you have enough space to, get it done, and then it's easy
Mm,
for people to meet without having to travel too far.
mm,
Um, I guess in the rural areas probably gets a little bit more challenging depending on where you are, just in the getting people
yeah.
together. So,
And
um,
around the world, there are loads of skate groups. So it's just getting them and the people with disabilities together. The only other problem is, so the front wheel,
yep.
that's like the most expensive part.
Yeah,
And
so I read you had spoke about this, that there's like a specific adaptation they do to your wheelchair, right? That allows it
yeah,
to, what is it? It allows higher speed, or what happens? Or it allows you to be pushed.
so we can be pushed normally, like with four wheels, but
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen, but when you go fast in a manual chair, the
It's
front two
terrible.
wheels wobble.
Right.
They wobble quite a lot. So this attachment lifts up the two wheels and then has a front wheel, so it becomes like a free-wheeled wheelchair, and that stops the wobble. And it becomes like a sports wheelchair, really.
Are there any new advancements on the horizon in wheelchair technology that are like seemingly pretty cool?
Well, I mean, there's chairs which can change the height, and my chair you can go backwards, so I can rest with the seat going back. Um, and this was many years ago, and it must be a lot better now. But there was a chair which could climb stairs as well.
I've seen that where it kind of like TikToks the wheels up,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
I would imagine as robotics improve and just technology in general, that they'll be able to continue to do some pretty amazing things. But it
yeah.
seems like in the interim that being able to go fast is pretty fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Right.
great fun, and it's one of those things where uh you could go pretty fast if there's more skaters behind.
Oh, you mean like
So
multiple people pushing at once?
yeah, so like I've had five people pushing me, and it's yeah, we go really fast.
Nice.
It's
That's gotta
great
be
fun.
fun. I
Yeah.
I used to rollerblade when I was younger, like
Oh, okay.
at the skate park or whatever, but it's been years. And some friends and I went like that for a friend's
Right.
birthday on the
Yeah.
boardwalk, and it was hilarious. It was actually really fun, and it was
Mm,
something that, like, I otherwise probably wouldn't have ever thought to go do. But
mm.
seeing the big group of people coming together, it looks like a really really awesome like get together.
Oh, it is, and we do that on a weekly basis. Saturday we go around a park called Battersea Park, and then Sunday we do on the streets with 200 people. And actually, it's one of those things. So I didn't really know about roller skating or rollerblading, but I was shocked to hear that every Sunday since like 2000, they'd been doing this where 200 skaters would go around London. And I thought I've never seen or heard of that before.
Oh, well, it makes you wonder, like, how many other people in your, wishing that they had a group to go and participate in something like this, just don't know
Mm,
that it's there, and they're living in London too, and they have no
yeah,
idea.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's
We were just in
crazy.
London for my first time ever, and my fiance's first time ever, not just pre-pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but man, we absolutely loved that city. Like, so incredible. The food was unreal. I mean, some of
Mm,
the, like the best food that we've had, and then just the city itself. And we went in winter, so it was pretty
okay.
rainy and dreary, but we happen to oddly like the rain, probably because we live in the sun in California. But we were walking around the city and just like the architecture and
Mm.
everything is so cool in London. It's hard to describe. I don't really know how to say it, but we had like we want to go back super bad.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I live here, so I don't really. Obviously, I see the architecture and it's cool city, but I don't really. I need to explore London like a tourist one day, I think, just to really appreciate it.
I'll give you the insight. So this was hilarious. This was a classic tourist moment, but
Right.
we stayed at this like cute little hotel. It was very like bed and breakfast. And there
Okay.
was a Gales in the like entryway, you know, the coffee place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when we got there, we were
Yeah.
like, oh, there's this really cute cafe downstairs called Gales. And we thought this was like a mom and pop shop, like small business, family owned. And we went there,
Yeah.
we'd get breakfast there every day. And then later on in the trip, we saw Gales like all over the city. And then we realized that Gales is basically like Starbucks in London. And we're like, oh my God, we thought that we found this really cute, like coffee place, and we're spending every morning at Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just have no perspective, It
Mm.
was funny, but we got a laugh out of that. But we definitely want to go back. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah, London's got a lot of hidden gems. Even I've seen places I've not really been to before, and it's like, wow, that's in London. It's opened my eyes too. But when you come, yeah, we'll have to hang out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you'll ever end up in California, but I thought there's some awesome groups here that do surfing.
Okay.
And they have like the boards are all set up and everything, and they do it every year. It would be really cool to take you surfing. I know you've been skiing, you've been skydiving. I don't have you been surfing yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, if you come to California, this is on live. I mean, this is going out
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
100%. We'll find a way to get you surfing. We'll get you all set up and everything. It's really cool. In the town I live, there's a beach about half mile away. It's really fun surf. Um,
Okay.
and it would be an incredible, another, one of many millions of experiences that you've had that is remarkable. So it would be really fun to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm open to doing new things. So yeah, surfing's one of those things. Actually, I had a conversation with someone in Australia, and he was saying about surfing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of options
There's
out there.
a there's an organization in Los Angeles, and I forget the name. But
Right.
they bring people with disabilities surfing every year. They do it a couple
Okay.
times a year. So they have these surfboards that are set up, and then they have instructors that wade out in the water, and so they're like basically by your side as you're doing it.
Right.
And thousands of people come out for it every year. It's incredible. It's super awesome. I'm sure you'd be able to find it online. But
Oh,
yeah,
and just disabilities, you mean?
like
Oh,
if
okay.
people are in will they bring anyone who's like I don't know if they need to be part of the organization or not, but if you're in a wheelchair, they'll bring you, and they have surfboards set up specifically to accommodate, and then they take people surfing for the day,
Oh,
and it's
nice.
it's rad. So yeah, offer stands indefinitely. If you ever come out to California, we'll take you surfing, and
Because
you can create a viral video for it.
yeah. So I've been to America 3 times. Not California. But my first time was in Ohio,
Oh boy.
and that's where I did the skydive. Actually, I
Oh,
did
you
it
gotta
there.
come. You've never been to California?
No, I haven't.
Okay, what about New York?
I've been to New York, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good. New York, phenomenal. Ohio, not so phenomenal.
And Colorado as well.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I went to Winter Park and did the skiing.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
That's where you went skiing.
Well, I mean, that was third time skiing, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I grew up. There's a town very close to there, like 2 hours away, called Steamboat Springs, and I used to compete in Winter Park when I was growing up. I
Oh, right, okay.
skied competitively for years, but wow, that's so cool. I mean, of all the mountains, Winter Park is beautiful. It's such a cool mountain.
Yes, yeah. It was so first time I went to America and done skiing because before that I did it in Switzerland for
Like
2 years.
Zurich.
Geneva.
Okay, cool. Wow,
I did.
so awesome.
Yes, yeah.
So we in the 11th hour of the episode found that out. That would have been I had no idea. That's really cool. Yeah, Winter Park's a beautiful mountain,
Mm.
a lot of terrain. So you flew into Denver and then probably just drove up.
Yeah, we went to, I think we did go to Denver, yeah.
Well, then we'll have
Um,
to go skiing too. Now we have a
yeah.
whole weekend out of it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Isaac, I thank you so much, man, for taking the time. I really
No
do
problem.
appreciate it. It was an awesome conversation. You are inspiring to say the least. I think you know that at this point. So no need to reiterate, but I'm gonna stand by and watch you grow. This is incredible.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the invitation to be on your podcast and have another platform to speak. And this will be the first of many conversations that we have together.
Yes, absolutely. Many conversations. We are going to go surfing. That will happen one
Yes.
day.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, I'm excited to keep watching your story. And then we're gonna have you come back on and explore the twisted dark side of your jokes that you said.
yeah. Yeah. We'll do that one in person.
Yeah, exactly. With no recordings, no video, no nothing, no people, no
Yeah.
wires.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, Isaac, you have a great day, man. Keep in
Thank you.
touch. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely. Thank you.
Bye. Oh, wait.